Hello everyone, welcome back to another day of Vlogmas. I did a poll asking you guys what kind of videos you would want to see this month, and a lot of you said nature, some of you said Christmas activities, and I think one of you also said collections. So I wanted to make sure there was at least one video in here that had just something showcasing my personal collections, and this is my, as you can tell, tarot and oracle deck collection. As I've said many times in the past, I have more oracle decks than I do tarot because, well, there's just more variety, I feel like if I have one tarot deck, it's just going to be different artwork, but the same exact themes, for the most part at least. So I only get a tarot deck if I feel like it really is going to add another dimension to my understanding of tarot, or add another dimension to my collection, or what have you. And I'm very happy with my tarot collection right now. I don't feel like I need any more, but if I see another unique one that I feel like I could get into, I would go for it. Basically, this is everything that I have. Here I took out the deck so that you could see the artwork on the back. And while this is quite a lot of decks, I've seen people who collect them have much more. So, hi Farley. He was helping me out making the video, so he's just saying hi. But yeah, like I've seen bookshelves and bookshelves of them. I don't think I could ever reach that level of decks. Like there's more things that I would rather spend my money on, but at the same time, like if you find something that you can really identify with that improves your collection, that you can incorporate into your whatever. I understand getting another deck, but sometimes I look at these people's collections online and it's like, there's no way that you're using these often. There's got to be just 14 of them that you use consistently, and then the rest of them, it's like there's probably some decks that you haven't used in years, and I'm like, why buy that, But that's just my opinion. Honestly, there's probably many other reasons why people get decks other than why I do, so I understand that. It's perfectly fine. There definitely are decks that I like more than others, and some that I barely use at all, and I'm about to show you individually each deck to a mini quick flip through, and I'll identify which ones those are. So here we have the Journey of Love Oracle. I don't use this deck enough. It is very beautiful. It's just, the theme of love is necessary, obviously, to have, I feel like, in a collection, but at the same time, it's also, not a lens that I need constantly. But as you can see, the imagery is very, very beautiful. Lately, I've been drawn to graphic art, and I feel like it would be really cool to learn how to make images like this, if possible. Just the color palettes and the way that the colors blend together. The movement is just striking, so I'm a fan of this deck. Like I said, I don't use it enough. There's one of these cards that's coming up that's got stuck to it's this one, yeah, got stuck to another card, and the image got a little messed up, so that was sad, but it's okay, I'm fine with it. Here we have the Sacred Rebels Oracle on Alana Fairchild deck. Any Alana Fairchild deck that you get is intensive. I don't know how to explain it. You're probably gonna need a little journal to reflect on. Very beautifully written guidebooks going at the core of everything, but also is just extremely relevant to what's important at the moment, and it will ask you to look at things in such an angle and in such a way that I feel like it's better to instead just do this daily, maybe do this weekly or monthly, a deck like this. So yeah, definitely one of my favorites. This is a deck that I have used very often in the past, and I'm always open to another Alana Fairchild deck for this reason. Here we have the Miracle of Light Soul Activation cards by Lauren Kenny. I did a video on this promoting it because she sent this to me for free from the UK. She's so nice. Her artwork is so beautiful. We also exchanged services. I gave her a numerology reading, and she drew up a little spirit guide slash, I guess, soul reading for me. And everything she does is beautiful and stunning and intuitive, and it's a very, very interesting perspective, or a category, a niche. I don't know how to explain it. In the realm of readers, her work is just incredibly original and on point and accurate and amazing in every way, and I recommend looking up her services, following her on Instagram. I'll leave stuff in the description if you're curious, but yeah, like I said, I already did a video on this. Here we have the Earth Warriors Oracle, again by Alana Fairchild, and I got this deck to learn more about indigenous cultures, like indigenous deities, gods, goddesses, etc. I don't recognize many of the things, people, deities, gods and goddesses, represented in this deck, and so I wanted to just have something that I could work with in this way, and learn more about it. And because of Alana Fairchild's very well written guidebooks, I feel like I am learning more, and the artwork speaks for itself. It's just stunning, like many of the decks here and many of Alana Fairchild's decks, so I'm never disappointed with her decks, and I'm glad I have this one in my collection. Here we have a deck by Colette Baron-Reid, and I like to keep this by my bed. There is a little nooks in my bed backboard thing, and I like to keep it in there. Something about the artwork reminds me of children's books, but in a good way. In fact, I recall talking in a previous video, I believe it's my beginner's Oracle deck video, Oracle deck reading for beginners, and I mentioned that one of the reasons why I like Oracle deck so much is because it reminds me of when I was a kid, and I would pick a book before bed and interact with the images and have a story laid out, and something about that reminds me of using an Oracle deck, and this deck is very much associated with that for me, that feeling of storybook in a way. Here we have the Botanical Inspirations deck, which I love to use in springtime, especially for my patron supporters. That's another thing. A lot of these decks I use in my Patreon readings. If you would like to sign up for a monthly reading, see the links in the description. I also bought this deck again to kind of learn more about the symbolism of flowers, because they have a history and they have a symbolism, and flowers are beautiful, and when springtime rolls through, I like to get in the, inspiration of spring, and this does it for me. So I recommend this deck if you like botany, if you like flowers, if you want to feel some spring energy in your altar or what have you. And yeah, just an all-around great deck. I think I remember unboxing this video on YouTube and saying it reminds me of a tea party. It has this elegant, fun nature about it. Here we have the Nature's Whispers, and this was my first Oracle deck. And boy, was it the right deck for me to have at first. It's just so, I don't know, it's again, with the Colette Baron-Reid, it reminds me of play. It reminds me of kind of being a kid, but with the depth of understanding of an adult, of someone who's really kind of diving into the deeper meanings of things with the artwork and the messages. That's my favorite card, honestly. That's one of my favorite cards. So beautiful. I would recommend this deck to anyone. The imagery just has so much to offer, and I'm so glad that I just went for it, you know, like when I didn't think I was made for oracle card reading, I said, you know what, I like this. I'm drawn to it, I don't know why. I'm gonna try it out. So yeah, this was great. Here we have the Shamanic Medicine Oracle deck, which is a deck that I do not use enough. It is so beautiful. The back has this red, earthy energy, and each card, like the cards are very diverse. Like that's the thing about this deck. Like no two cards are exactly alike. There's a lot going on. You know, sometimes you get a deck and all the cards generally feel the same in a way, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, but not this deck. There's so much going on. Like you if you saw pictures of one card and another, you would think potentially they were different decks, but no. So again, I would recommend this deck to anyone. And the nice thing about the diverse artwork is that there's also like diverse keywords, which is good for something like a daily deck. And tell me this guy does not look like Obama, okay? Look at his face. I don't know, yeah, like, I zoomed in on it because I was like, wait a minute. Sorry, that was a random quirk that I had while flipping through the cards. But here we have this beautiful animal deck, like messages from your spirit guides deck that my friend Janice got me. Thank you so much, Janice, because I actually really wanted this deck. And what I love about it is the texture of the cards. It's like this matte cloth that is just so satisfying and easy to shuffle. I love working with it. Again, a very diverse deck in terms of like the kinds of animals and messages that you can get. I love that the egret guy is on the back of all the cards. I actually had one of those birds following me around for a while when I was in California, and I think they're beautiful and very interesting creatures. So yeah, if you want like a spirit guide animal deck, I think this is the best one right now, in my humble opinion. Next we have the Spacious Tarot, which is, as of right now, honestly my most used tarot deck. It's like my favorite at this time. And I supported this deck on Kickstarter. It was really exciting to be like the first wave of people getting it. And I'm just, yeah, overall very happy that I discovered it. And I kept pulling swords cards throughout this deck, and I had to like shuffle them and try to do a flip through other than just swords. And I think what happened was I just ended up getting more swords anyway, so a lot of sword heavy imagery here in this particular clip of this deck, but feel free to check it out online to get a better variety. And I do use this deck, and I think I even did a video on it perhaps on my channel, you know, so check out that playlist if you want to see more of it. And yeah, it was at this point I was like, okay, I get it. I actually tend to pull out a lot of swords myself often. It's just like a common theme that I get in my personal reading, so maybe that had something to do with it. But anyway, so this is hard to explain why I love it so much. It's just like an adventure. It's like going out on a journey. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's this beautiful, intricate, yet simple deck. Sorry, I'm like flipping through them really fast here, but I was trying to get like variety for you guys. So yeah, look at that beautiful card. I think I just agree, honestly, the most with the artist, with their choice of symbolism, with their kind of depictions, with the cards. So yeah, I think I resonated with this person's both illustrations and messages for each card, and I'm a fan. Here we have the Keepers of the Light Oracle cards, one of my top 5 favorite decks for sure. And I often use this deck to be like, who's in my atmosphere today? You know, like who's showing up today? Who's here? And I really loved learning about like different gods and goddesses and deities as well, just like beings too, like this guy, this Gandalf guy. I didn't know who he was until I got this deck. It's beautiful gold and blue in the back. It feels great to have many different people from different backgrounds in one deck, you know, so you don't just like have like an angel deck or a Jesus deck or, you know, like an Egyptian deck. It's really nice to like kind of have all the light workers together, because I don't feel like I identify with any single one of them. I love the lessons that each one brings. If I had to identify, it would probably be that White Eagle guy though, for sure. As you can see, I have a lot of indigenous culture slash, you know, Native American inspired decks, and that's what I think connect to the most, having grown up on the south shores of Long Island, of Fire Island, where you know, you had this pristine habitat where you could connect with nature, and I liked to pretend what it was like, you know, being a person, an indigenous person living off the land there. And I've just always had this deep fascination with indigenous everything. These decks take me there, and this is so nature oriented that I often use this in winter to help me get back into the spirit of Earth, essentially, when I'm stuck inside all the time. It's very healing. The images, the messages, everything about it. Here we have the Faceted Garden Oracle deck, which is a deck that I recently just did a video on. The iridescent gilded edges are definitely one of my favorite aspects about this deck. And I need to spend more time with this deck. I have not really had a lot of time with it yet. And I believe in that video I spoke of how like I had gotten really into the garden during the year, because what else was there to do? And it was nice having this magical deck in that realm of my hobby of gardening. So that's why I wanted it in my collection, and I loved the other deck by the same artist so much that I knew I would like it. Any outdoorsy nature type of deck is something that I can appreciate. Here we have the Wild Unknown Tarot, and this was a deck that I used constantly for a period of time. It was like one of my first tarot decks, and I just unfortunately have not used it in a long time, but I should, because it's great. I think especially during this time of the year, especially when there's kind of like this really a little bit dark vibe to it, you know, very shadowy. So you think, you know, like Scorpio season perhaps. The guidebook is very clear and concise. It expresses exactly the message. It expresses the message of the card very well in just like a few sentences. And some people complain about that, and I get that. Sometimes I do too. But I actually, that's what I appreciate about this deck. I think it would be great for beginners, perhaps. Although if you want to do this professionally, you might want to start with the Rider Waite, you know, or like an original deck, just to like get the gist of it. But after that, I would recommend the Wild Unknown to a beginner. The next deck here is another like collaboration with Colette Baron Reid. It's the Mystical Shaman Oracle. The cards are massive. I mean, this is not the only deck that I have that has big cards, but with someone with little hands, like, we just struggle. You know, I'm sure someone here understands. I don't know why, but like my feet and my hands just like stopped growing at age 10, and I've just had the same size hands since then. Maybe even younger, maybe more like 9 or even 8. So, you know, when it comes to the really big decks, like, it's great to have on your altar because you have this like amazing canvas on your altar, but like shuffling is a struggle for me. And this is yet another deck that I need to use more often. That's the great thing about doing this video, was remembering, just it's good to look back on your collection and be like, what am I neglecting, Here we have the Untamed Truth Oracle cards. Again, another one of my favorites, another spooky, accurate deck for me, and it doesn't seem like it would be. Like, you flip through the cards, you're like, oh yeah, spirit, and then you get to another one, you're like, oh yeah, water, okay. No, but like when you pull out the cards, it tells a story. I don't know how to explain it, and it's a very accurate story. It does not fuck around, this deck. It's literally the untamed truth, and like you wouldn't suspect it flipping through the cards, but like I think the intention of the artist really shines through somehow in a way that I can't really articulate. I think also there's a card in here that says like, oh fuck, or something like that, and it's just, it's very relatable. It's refreshingly transparent in that way, and it's not like, it's a very unique deck to have. Please get it. Okay, so here we have the Fountain Tarot, which I honestly specifically just use mostly in January. January comes and I'm like, I'm bringing it out. It's like out for the entire month because it just screams January to me. And again, this is another tarot deck or another deck in general that has such variety. Yes, the color scheme is very similar card to card, but there's many, many different kinds of both abstract and more like concrete depictions. Here's like a blending of like, a person in this abstract view, and it's just the mood, the messages, the intention for the deck. I can't quite remember because it's been a long time since I made the video for this deck, but I remember like reading the artist's intention for the deck and like what they wanted it to mean and just resonating with it very well. So I recommend that deck. This is the Illuminated Earth Oracle, the kind of like sister or brother deck to the Faceted Garden Oracle deck, same artist. And I like to use this deck a lot again in my Patreon readings, my monthly numerology readings. The thing about like Oracle decks is that, well, at least I try to use them as like an additional thing. So I feel like if you're an astrologer and you give readings, or you're like me, you're a numerologist and you give readings, it's like there's always something left unsaid, and I use the cards to try like as a supplement to try to get at something that perhaps is very even more specific for my currents at that time, something that should be talked about that I haven't already. And then sometimes, despite this intention, I pull out the cards and it's an exact story of what I had explained for the numerology of that month. So what can you do? But anyway, these are the cosmic reading cards. Now, I did a video on this and I recall finding a typo in the book, and since then I tried to get into this deck. I don't know why, but I just couldn't. Like, the images are not very sharp, although very beautiful and cosmically inspired. You can tell just something about this deck feels unfinished, and I don't know how to explain it. So unfortunately, like, it just didn't do it for me. It didn't bring the cosmos into my life like I wanted it to. So this, as well as another deck, I would actually be willing to trade for anyone here if they want it. If there's something that they have that I've always wanted, we could arrange something. And there's another deck coming up that I also just found I never used, was also unfortunately just kind of disappointed with, but I'm sure someone out there would like these decks. So let me know in the comments, or message me on my many social media accounts for that. This is the Gateway Oracle by Denise Lin. Denise Lin is another one of my favorite deck artists and creators. I actually don't know for sure if she is the illustrator, but any deck by Denise Lin I'm a fan of. This is a great daily deck, and it's very calming, very soothing. It's got a very summer vibe, so I use this deck a lot in the summer. I would say the rest of the year not so much. And there are a lot of just scenarios I find that come up in this deck that are not in many other decks that I have, so I appreciate the variety that it gives my entire collection. And yeah, that's all I gotta say about this deck. here we have the Soul Trees Discovery cards, and these were sent to me in a giveaway, and I made a video on that too. And I just thought it was so nice that she had that giveaway for these beautiful cards. Check out that video where I think I basically won this deck, along with a beautiful journal and like this really nice notepad for like setting good intentions and stuff, and I use it all the time still to this day. So thank you again to the artist of this deck, the creator of this deck, for doing that. I'm really glad I have this in my collection. Trees are beautiful. Hers are less realistic, I guess. They're more like this beautiful color palettes. It's like looking at a tree but with emotions through the lens of whatever message that, you know, you're meant to receive at that time. They convey a lot. I recommend it. The Universe Has Your Back by Gabrielle Bernstein. There are a few cards in this deck that I'm not very much a fan of, unfortunately, as I found afterwards, but it's still really cool. It's a really cool kind of deck to have, you know, with no guidebook, but the message is just like on the card right there, and the artwork is very, very interesting and does it for me. But yeah, like just some of the magical thinking and the toxic positivity that has infiltrated spirituality and has created its own kind of dogma lately is just, I'm not a fan of it, and I can kind of see hints of it sometimes in this deck. So that's like, it's just something to consider if you're like me and you don't just want something that's all rainbows and sunshine all the time, but it's actually helping. You know, just it's not, you know, we want more decks helping us through difficult situations, not trying to just ignore them by making things lists that we're grateful for, you know, if you catch my drift. So yeah, but it's still a beautiful deck and I'm glad I have it. The Sacred Destiny Oracle deck. Yeah, I remember making this video. It's the back. I mean, look at the back of the card. I still can't get over it, how beautiful that is. I think that I use this deck with, like, as a supplement a lot. I don't like to use this deck on its own because I find that it has like a more difficult time painting a story sometimes, depending on the day, but it makes a really good supplement to like a tarot reading or what have you. I find that like when I pull out cards and just from this deck, like they seem kind of very random messages, and I don't know why. You know, that could just be the luck of the draw, or you know, some other reason regarding the choices of the keywords of that deck, but just it's stunningly beautiful. The Dragon Oracle cards. This is one of the decks I have to like get in touch with like magic, you know, like your inner child with play, you know, working with like mystical creatures such as dragons. And I use this deck mostly when I'm in a very playful mood, because dragons have never really been something I've been drawn to, you know, like mythologies and fantasies and such. So I'm much more sci-fi, I think, than I am fantasy a little bit in some ways. So, but yeah, like I feel very much connected to my inner child when I bring out this deck. It's so much fun and it's interesting too. Like there's a lot here, like, you know, Aquamarine dragon from Neptune that's perhaps connected with astrology or things of that nature that you can look, from Saturn, black dragon from Saturn, that you can pull from. Sorry, I'm like, getting tongue-tied here. These are the vibrational energy oracle cards, and I don't know how or why, but I get the same exact card or cards every single time I use this deck, and I think that's why I low-key just stopped using this deck, was because I knew what message I was going to get. And it's that card right there, Perfect Storm, and the one before it, Messenger. There's like no amount of shuffling that helps. I don't know how or why. So that's what it has to tell me and nothing else. Really. Does that happen to any of you guys? Like it's just the same exact message over and over again for one particular deck? Or is that just me? But as you can see here, the cards are very interesting, and I really like them. I wish I could get something else from them. But anyway, moving on. This is the Universal Mind Oracle deck. I keep it in that little satchel because it didn't come with a box, and the guidebook is digital online. This is a really interesting combo of like cosmic energies and nature and philosophy. Very interesting deck. And I find myself drawn to this deck more when I'm in a little bit of a retreat mode, when I feel like symbology and the cosmos and I'm like in tune with myself. I find that I reach towards this deck a little bit more, because it does not come really with a ready guidebook. I gotta look it up online, and when I'm feeling in touch with myself, I find that I go towards that deck more. This is the Star Child Tarot. It's one of the first tarot decks I think I had as well, in addition to the Wild Unknown. Very, very like etheric kind of deck. As you can see, the very bright pink and purple pastels, a very interesting artwork of like what seems as edited images of photography. So very cool. It is kind of difficult to shuffle. They do stick together, but I remember getting this deck and being really excited about it and giving very, very good, accurate readings with it right from the get-go. So I'm happy. I'm happy with this deck. Look at that little kitty hidden in the moon. I've never noticed that before. I just noticed it that time. Moving forward, we have the Shamanic Healing Oracle cards. Just did the video for this, so check that out if you haven't seen it yet. This was a very good November deck that I wanted, something that's embraces the shadow and the light at the same time, shamanic healing. Very, very deep imagery, very deep, beautiful, simplistic imagery. I love the the gold gilded edges. I have found that the keywords are on point. It tells a story. That's what I'm always looking for. And it's the first deck in a while, like I said in that video, where I feel like I could use it every day. And I'm still continuing it to use this deck the most often. I'm getting to know it a little bit more. So maybe I'll have some insights later down the road a little bit more about this deck. But I recommend it if you're into that kind of shamanic healing. Here we have the Eternal Crystals Oracle deck. The emerald green back is just stunning to me. That's the first thing that drew me to that deck, was the back. And there's so many amazing crystal oracle decks to choose from. In fact, I have many times considered getting another one, but this one has just satisfied, I feel like, all my crystal deck needs, honestly. I really appreciate the focus of the color, of the stone as being the entire card. I feel like that's how the energy shines through. And if you look very closely, you can see hints of images in the background that you might not notice, but your subconscious mind does, in a strange, interesting way. And yeah, you gotta look really hard at them, but there's a lot going on in the cards, and it's still my favorite crystal oracle deck. Here we have the Tarot of Transformation. Definitely an extremely unique find. If you're looking for something very unique and a very different outlook on the tarot journey, I recommend this deck. Definitely buy it from the site, because when I was looking for it, I couldn't find any other vendors. It was just the main vendor that had it. If you try to buy it somewhere else, people will just sell you the book or just the deck and not both. It's very strange. So go directly to the website, this woman's website, the creators of the deck, to purchase it. The only complaints I have is that the cards are very flimsy, so when I shuffle them, I have to be extremely careful, but to me it's worth it. I just wish the cardstock did the imagery justice, and I feel like I learn something new every time I dive into that deck. Here we have the Celtic Tree Oracle. Getting deep within my Irish Celtic roots here. I'm sad there's only 25 cards in this deck, but I guess eventually you just run out of plants, so I get it. It's a glossy finish, so sometimes it's hard to shuffle, but it's okay. I get by, and this is a great March deck for St. Paddy's Day, for springtime, for all things nature, and the whole mood of this deck is just so bright, and I feel like overall very healing despite the specific messages, and you learn a lot about like the symbols of these plants and like the history of these plants, and it's just a very interesting deck. Very interesting to have in your collection. And look at that, holly for Christmas. Here we have the Fairies Oracle, which in my humble opinion is the most interesting way to explore the world of Fae through an oracle deck. It's, you know, a lot of times fairies are depicted at these like cute tiny little Tinkerbell things, but no, like this was very expansive. It was like fairies in an abstract sense, and then fairies in a very, very deep, like pagan-y nature way. And I mean, when I say the word nature, everyone has a different association with it. Like I think a lot of time, I think nature is like this beautiful, everything is always happy, nothing gets hurt, and it's not like that. Nature is savage, nature is intricate, it's silly, it does a lot of weird stuff. Nature's weird, guys. Like, spend a lot of time in nature, you're gonna find a lot of horrific things, you're gonna find a lot of interesting things. It's all beautiful, it's all love and light, but at the same time, it's like really look at that guy. Really, it's quite playful in its depths of shadows and light, and I feel like this captures that and more. It is really expansive. I keep it in this satin pouch because the cards are a little bit flimsy and I want to keep them safe, and they came in like it didn't come with a box really, and you're really investing in the book. Like the book is everything with that deck. Here we have the Japari Tarot. I still don't know how to pronounce it from the last video I made about it. So if someone here now knows how to pronounce that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Love the backing. The artwork is a very interesting mood, and if I was an artist, I'd be able to articulate better. I'd be able to articulate the art better. I really am just working off of like how it makes me feel, but I love the amazing colors in this deck. The kind of kooky and yet sometimes, as you can see, abstract art here. You know, like this, you're looking at like a blur of colors in a vast landscape, and then you pull out a card and you're seeing like really interesting geometry and really interesting shapes and figures and depictions. It's endlessly interesting. Here we have the Oceanic Tarot. This was gifted to me. I did not buy this. It's very childlike. I like the backs a lot, but like the artwork, I think just after collecting a lot of decks is not doing it for me, you know? It's like, and it's all mermaids, so I'm like, as a marine biologist, I'm like, can we have some biology, some science in here, not just like all fantasy mermaidy stuff? And that's just my opinion. I feel like this is like the Florida deck, you know, the Atlantis deck, the deck you have in your beach house that I will never have, unfortunately, because I can't afford basic income. I don't even have basic income for life at this point with my field of trying to save the environment and not take advantage of it. Sorry, that got dark real quick, but you know what I'm saying? It's just like a tarot deck, I feel like, should be more than this. Here we have this deck that I bought because I really loved Kyle Gray's other deck, the Lightworker deck. And I was just disappointed with it. Like, I never use this deck. Here's another deck, in addition to the Cosmic one, that I'd be willing to trade with someone. Like, these decks would probably make someone very happy. And yeah, I would just love to do... Oh, fuck. Wow. That was Sorry about that. It looks like I dropped the camera while trying to tell you guys, but like, look at that image. Isn't that creepy? You know, like that just like gives me a creepy vibe, not like a good feeling. And then I don't know. It never, like, why does that guy have so much gel in his hair? And he's very pale. Like, he needs B12. He needs some iron. You know, I just couldn't get into the deck. So someone would probably like it here. Let me know in the comments. Like I said before in the other deck, message me if you'd be willing to do a trade. Here we have the Sacred Geometry cards. I feel like this is the card I closely associate with numerology, because Sacred Geometry is basically a physical depiction of numerology, in a sense, of numbers. And so look at the backs. When I saw the back of this deck, I was like, I don't care what's on the other side. I need this deck. Look at how amazing that deck is. And as we see here, you know, numbers, geometry, this deck is my jam. I don't know why, but I had just been holding off using it in my readings, my monthly readings, until recently when I like, you know, was just looking through my stuff and I was like, why haven't I used that yet? So I'm gonna start using these more with my monthlies, and I think that I'm also gonna start looking for more numerology or sacred geometry decks. If you guys have any recommendations for something like that, please let me know as well. I could use a lot of help with that. There's just not, numerology is just not as popular as, unfortunately, as astrology and other things, so I struggle. The Secret Language of Animals. Okay, now this is a very beautiful deck, but I do kind of prefer my other animal spirit guide oracle deck to this one. Funny thing, when I pulled up the red squirrel, I looked outside and there was a squirrel. Just ignore the weird towel. That's a dog's towel. He was munching on a nut. But going back to this deck, I really appreciate the amazing depictions of these animals that do them justice with this vibrant life that it gives them. The only issue, again, is that they just get a little bit too sticky sometimes, depending on where I'm using them, like if it's humid outside. But other than that, I would recommend this deck as well as the other one if you are looking for anything with animals or the natural world. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know in the comments what your favorite decks are, which ones that you have in this collection. And I'll see you all very soon with the next Vlogmas video. Stay tuned.